and a couple of other marketing functions reporting to Peter Isaacson, our CMO. And love my job, love my role, and love working in enterprise marketing. What I will say before we get started is a huge thank you to Kate from KPMG for agreeing to ask the questions and participate in the discussion. And we'd really like this to be as interactive as it can be. So I want everyone to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation, and as questions occur to you when we get to the Q&A session, hopefully we'll have a ton of questions to get through. So really looking forward to the session today, and great to see so many people interested in demand gen and ready to jump in and have an interactive session with us. The other thing I wanted to say is this is a really, really strange and difficult time for everybody, especially for B2B marketers. So I just hope everybody is safe, your families are safe, your pets are safe, and you're managing to get through this new reality of working from home, working with your kids potentially in the house, doing homework, helping them with their assignments, mission projects, etc., etc. I've got 3 young boys and they've promised me they'll be quiet for the next hour, so we shall see. I didn't lock the door into the office, so we may have some visitors. If we do, apologize in advance. But I will say my pet chocolate lab is out for a walk, so we should not get disturbed by her. The other thing I wanted to do before we dive into the questions is kind of just hand over to Kate and let her introduce herself. And then I think we can get rolling with the discussion and with the questions. So Kate, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks so much, Brian. So I'm Kate Lavigne. I am the demand activation leader for KPMG US. I am local, so I'm in Cambridge, Mass. I actually, for anybody that's really local, I live over in what was formerly North Point, is now Cambridge Crossing. So that's what this interesting apartment I live in looks like. So my role at the firm is really about being a conduit between marketing and sales, driving demand generation and lead generation programming, utilizing different tools such as Demandbase and other tools that we use. We also are in charge of lead scoring, RFPs, web inquiries, the full gamut. So people from my team are really just trying to kind of continue the conversation and then align our sales teams to those qualified folks that really want to have conversations with us. So we've been working with Demandbase for about a year and a half, at least I have. We actually, I think, worked with you guys before, with Demandbase before. And so we're big users of Demandbase, we're big proponents of Demandbase, but it's not just about the utilization of the platform, it's actually kind of coming up with our entire strategy, which we've really incorporated with the help of our team at Demandbase. So with that, I guess maybe we should just jump into some of the questions. Does that sound good? Okay. So what was the state of B2B marketing before COVID-19? How bad do you think it will get now?
Yep, thanks, Kate. So my perspective on this, the economy was already declining before COVID-19 kind of was unleashed. And, our CMO gave a presentation at B2B MX right before the lockdown happened, and we were already looking at, declining indicators in the economy. So GDP growth had consistently fallen throughout last year. We could see the capital expenditures were also declining. And business confidence, the business confidence index had taken a remarkable dip. So even by January of this year, faith in government had dropped as well. So a lot of key economic indicators were dropping. And I think a lot of people who follow the markets were saying, hey, we're in for a contraction here. How severe it is, nobody could have guessed. And I think nobody could have expected a global pandemic to come around the corner and accelerate that. But I think as B2B marketers, even in Q3 and Q4 of last year, we were starting to prepare for, a drop. And like I say, none of us could have expected the drop to be as dramatic as it is and will be. But we were already looking at our budget, at our spend, at our campaign activity, and trying to figure out, what will we do when this expected drop in business activity happens. Another sort of key indicator before COVID-19 that things were starting to decline was the overall percentage of marketing budget as a percentage of company revenue. So that has consistently dropped since 2016. So in 2016, marketing budget as a percentage of overall revenue was 12.1%. In 2017, it dropped to 11.3%. In 2018, it dropped to 11.2%. And in 2019, it had dropped all the way down to 10.5%. And even before COVID, we kind of expected it to continue to drop into 2020. What COVID will do to that is probably accelerate the drop. So as B2B marketing professionals, we were already facing challenging budget situations where we were being asked to do more with less, essentially, where we knew our budgets were under pretty substantial pressure and we were going to have to cut in certain areas on our program spend. And that was just the reality of doing business even before COVID. And then the other kind of offshoot of that is we were continually chasing this efficiency gap where the cost per opportunity was, there was pressure on us to make that drop, because as your budget drops, your efficiency has to increase in order to keep up. So we had noticed this efficiency gap where, you know, B2B marketers were continually pushing to get a lower cost per opportunity and get more opportunities into the funnel, but there's only so far you can go with that. So with declining budgets, there was an efficiency gap there where you simply kind of hit a wall in terms of cost per opportunity and your budget's declining. So it's getting more difficult to generate those volume of opportunities. And there's simply a gap there that you can't overcome. So pre-COVID, we kind of were already ready for this reality. COVID is a totally new reality, right? So 22 million people have filed for unemployment as a result of this phenomenon. We know budgets were already tight and are tightening further. So for any B2B marketer, that's, you know, that's the reality that we're operating in now. The pressure on business is pretty substantial. So your budgets are most likely being impacted, and you're going to have to do more with less. So efficiency and cost per opportunity is one of the key ways that I think we can do that. And as we talk about and move through this discussion, we'll drill into how can you get more efficiency on your cost per opportunity and essentially drive more demand with less budget.
Perfect. I know that, you know, at KPMG, we've been focusing on trying to do new things, different things than we've always done in the past. You know, we were very heavy on in-person events. Obviously, that's a completely not realistic scenario for us for quite some time now. You know, how can B2B marketers increase campaign efficiency now, given that they have to utilize completely different tactics than they ever have before?
Yeah, it's a great point, Kate. So the other big sort of elephant in the room is, as a demand gen marketer, you know, you've lost 2, possibly 3 of your best performing channels. So certainly at Demandbase, events, conferences, and field marketing, all of our in-person activities were huge contributors of pipeline, great ways for us to connect with our existing customers, et cetera, et cetera. Both of those channels are simply offline for us now and for the foreseeable future, to be honest. Direct mail is another really good channel that we use to connect with people sort of further down the funnel. And that's not completely offline, but certainly the idea of delivering, you know, a perfectly timed piece of direct mail to land on a CMO's desk right when they're evaluating an account-based marketing platform, that's not happening anymore. Nobody's at their desk. So we have made some pretty substantial pivots in our marketing campaign activity. We've moved away from events and field marketing, obviously, and we've pushed a lot of that budget over to our digital channels. So we're doing a ton more webinars, we're doing virtual roundtables, events like this, quite honestly, where we can connect with marketing peers and kind of share ideas. We're doing a lot more of that. And then on the direct mail side, we've pivoted to, you know, e-certificates, Uber Eats vouchers, you know, stuff that can be redeemed virtually, coffee vouchers, although it's hard to find a decent coffee shop that's actually still open. So there are ways you can pivot your direct mail campaign to continue to contribute to pipeline, but everything on the events and field side, as you said, Kate, we've moved all that digital now.
Right.
The question about efficiency is a really good one. So I do believe that the old sort of waterfall model of demand generation, where you focus on the top of funnel and volume, is just a big waste of time and money. And while that may have been somewhat acceptable in the past, now when our budgets are so tight and possibly getting tighter, you simply can't afford any waste. And with the old model, we used to see you know, top of funnel activity, traditional demand gen, like 4.4% of those inquiries would convert into something meaningful, which in my view is a complete failure. So to me, that's 95.6% of the activity, the leads that you generate are not turning into anything meaningful. And 0.03%, and not 0.3, 0.03% of those inquiries were closed won. And that's according to Serious Decisions, who created the waterfall model. So the old model of creating a volume of leads top of funnel, just hugely inefficient, because such a small percentage of those inquiries ever converted into anything meaningful, like a meeting or a demo request, and such a tiny fraction of those ever closed one business for you, that it was just simply way too inefficient model. And in days like these, we can't afford that kind of inefficiency. The other thing I think that was happening with the traditional demand gen approach was leads simply weren't valued. So 50% of marketing generated leads were never followed up. Okay, so according to, trying to look at the source on this one, but reputable research firm was showing that 50% of marketing leads were simply not followed up by sales. So again, half of your efforts in marketing were kind of completely wasted, and sales would have had this back and forth that, you know, the leads that you're generating for me are simply not high quality. I'm not going to waste my time on those. I'm going to focus on the accounts that I think matter. And you have sales and marketing in a kind of adversarial relationship, not working together and not working in lockstep. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about sales and marketing alignment shortly, but clearly the old model was just hugely inefficient, sales and marketing not on the same page, and just simply not a workable model back then, and certainly not a workable model right now. The one thing I do think we can take some heart in is that account-based marketing is a great solution for times like these when budgets are tight and we're under severe pressure. Some of our channels are not working. And Topo has some great benchmarks that show how ABM outperforms traditional methods of demand gen. So in terms of aligning your sales and marketing team, your overall lifetime value, your ability to upsell and cross-sell existing customers, return on sales and marketing investments, your close rates, your contract value, initial contract value, and your overall customer retention rate. An ABM model, according to Topo, shows pretty substantial, anywhere from 3 to 5% increase across the board when you apply an ABM versus a more traditional waterfall model. And the last thing I'll say about ABM in a time like this is it's a great way to improve the overall efficiency of your sales development reps or your BDRs. So sales efficiency is just a really critical part of meeting that lower cost per opportunity goal that we're all chasing. And when you apply an account-based approach where those BDRs, SDRs are going after a targeted set of accounts in their area, and not only that, you're giving them insights into intent and activity from those accounts so that they have something meaningful to talk to people about, their overall efficiency and ability to generate MQLs, pipeline, and closed won business substantially increases. So I think the summary message here is there is hope, and with a more challenging budget environment and demand that continues to need to be fed, an account-based model is just way more efficient than the more traditional demand gen models that we've been used to.
Now at KPMG, we spend a lot of time, obviously my whole job is to be a conduit between marketing and sales. We are, again, I would say, getting a little more aligned every day. And I would say kind of transitioning to a more ABM focused methodology has definitely helped us. And we definitely have, a long way to go, to say the least. But what can sales and marketing do more? Is it doing more together, or is it kind of separate but equal and enabling each other?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kate. And I really think sales and marketing alignment is where the ABM magic happens. We've seen what happens when sales and marketing teams are pulling in opposite directions or are poorly aligned. That's where we get back to like 50% of the leads you create are not followed up on. And, sales, these are garbage leads, I'm not wasting my time on them. And marketing's like, well, we're spending all this money and budget generating these leads and you're not doing your job. So it's like an endless cycle of despair where nothing is aligned and you're not focused on the right things. I think one of the keys of an account-based approach is you're kind of getting ahead of that. You're deciding together what your target accounts are, and you're agreeing with the sales team that these are this is our key set of target accounts, right? These are the accounts that we want to go after, that we want to nurture, that we want to focus on. And just getting your sales and marketing teams aligned at that level on that account list is a huge step forward. The other thing I think you can do in terms of aligning sales and marketing, and I'll give you some examples for how we do this at Demandbase, but you can work together on campaign ideation. So it's not simply a marketing deliverable to say, we're going to do this campaign with this creative and throw it over the wall to sales. I mean, you really want the sales team to be in lockstep with everything you're doing from a marketing perspective. And that goes all the way back to campaign ideation and coming up with suggestions for running and executing particularly effective campaigns. The other thing I think that's particularly important around sales and marketing alignment is that your sales team, your SDRs, can prioritize and select the correct accounts. So time is a limited resource for them as much as it is for anybody. So rather than having them randomly chasing accounts that they feel are a good fit or whatever, going back to that, that set of target accounts that you've agreed, that's a huge time saver, because you know that they are focusing their effort and prioritizing the accounts that matter. Messaging is really important, that you're keeping your sales and marketing teams coordinated on messaging, and that you're approaching prospects and contacts in the buying committee of accounts in a consistent way, and that you can execute on those campaigns pretty flawlessly. And then the last thing I'll say is another key to sales and marketing alignment is reporting, so that you have the same metrics across the board that you're using in marketing, and those metrics match up with the sales metrics, so that pipeline means pipeline. Number of opportunities a quarter means the same thing to both teams. You're not chasing a different goal. It's MQLs, it's pipeline, it's closed won business. We're all agreed on what our targets are for the quarter, and if we're falling behind in one area, we address it together. So if we're not generating enough MQLs, what can marketing and sales do together to run campaigns that will increase the flow of opportunities into the pipeline? So it's more of a shared opportunity, and you sort of break down that silo between sales and marketing, where in the past you're just throwing, marketing activity over to sales, and they're going, this is useless. I'm going to just go off and do my own thing. One of the things that oh, sorry, Kate,
did you? No, go ahead.
Yep.
I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. One of the things I think that we really focus on is running integrated campaigns with our sales colleagues, and by that I mean campaigns that have multifaceted layers. So you may start out with an email campaign to promote a webinar, and you'll invite a ton of people to that webinar on a specific thought leadership topic. So that's great. The email campaign gets people's interest. You get people to sign up. What do you do after that, though? So for anyone who signs up and attends the webinar and asks a couple of questions, they may be sort of filtered into a different track where you're sending them a piece of direct mail, or you're sending them a specific follow-up item, an asset, a content asset that's going to move them sort of further towards a decision-making process. A certain handful of those, you might want to do targeted account-based advertising campaign to those people who are getting more engaged. And the key here is that sales and marketing are not kind of acting in isolation with one another, but these are highly orchestrated steps across the buyer's journey, so that you're reaching the right people, people showing intent, turning up for your events and engaging with you in a sort of meaningful way. So that's what I mean by kind of highly aligned and orchestrated sales and marketing campaigns that have multiple parts to them, but ultimately the goal is to move those folks with high intent at the right accounts through your funnel, so that you have a predictable and consistent flow of business on the other side. The other thing I wanted to share on sales and marketing alignment, and then I'll sort of pass it back to you, Kate, was 3 things that we do at Demandbase that I think are really useful. The first is something called the funnel working group, and essentially this is a meeting once a week where we get our sales and marketing leaders together and we review key pipeline metrics. We discuss challenges and blockers to the campaigns that we're running. And this is led by our marketing ops, our head of marketing ops. So we're, again, back to the KPIs. We're looking at the same KPIs as sales. We're getting together once a week as a joint team, and we're focusing on the same things. And this isn't a tactical meeting to talk about headlines or creative. This is really looking at our pipeline, looking at our MQLs, looking at our close rate, and making sure that we're adjusting on the go. And that's something that we do collectively as a sales and marketing team in the funnel working group. So I think that's a great way to kind of force alignment between your sales and marketing teams. The other thing that we've started doing quite recently, and it's an initiative I lead at Demandbase, is a customer working group. And this is where we get together with our CS and CX teams, and we focus on our existing customers. So another thing that we're seeing as a result of COVID is, companies like ourselves really want to take care of our customers. We do not want to lose customers. It's much harder to win new customers now than it is to keep your existing customers happy. So we will sit down once a week with our customer success and customer experience leaders, and we'll talk about campaigns and strategies that we can run to make sure that our customers are staying happy, that they're aware of the latest features that we're rolling out, that we're producing content that is meaningful and useful to them. So that's a very important way to align on the customer side of things. And then the last thing that we're doing is, and this is led by our CMO, Peter, is a sales and marketing exchange. And that's a 30-minute a week virtual meeting where all of our sales leaders and our marketing leaders get together and we just discuss what's happening in the market. So what kind of conversations are you having with prospects now? Are they willing to take meetings? Are they reluctant to take meetings? Are people receiving the virtual e-gifts and direct mail that we're sending them? So we'll have conversations about how the market is evolving, any new market research that we feel is important. We'll discuss that at that meeting. So those are three kind of meetings that we have with sales and the CS team that help us share ideas and keep everybody kind of aligned and on the same track. Kate, I'll pass back to you if you want to add your perspective to that.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, KPMG obviously is a tremendously large organization, so we don't have that kind of alignment that we should. I think that is a forward goal for us. We are actively trying to work towards that goal. And I think it's interesting because you talked about alignment between marketing and sales. You talked about intent data and aligning to your buyer intent, your customer's intent. And you also talked about this entire customer journey. So, without the use of technology, I'm not really sure how you do that. Because I know, we're in the middle of a very large reorg over here at KPMG, and we are looking at new technologies all the time of what should be sunsetted, what are new, where should we be, right? So I think the tech stack is becoming ever more important. So what do you think the role of technology plays, especially now?
Yeah, that was a great question, Kate. Thanks. For me, I mean, the natural instinct at a time like this is to de-invest in technology, right? To stop spending, to cut, to sunset technologies, particularly if your budget's under pressure, right? At Demandbase, we feel that's a mistake, right? If anything, now is the time to invest in technology, simply because there are certain technologies that can give you the scale and efficiency in terms of pipeline generation that you simply will never get without them. So we've actually doubled down on some of our technology investments at this time because we know that we're going to need that efficiency and cost per pipe. So for example, I won't call out too many vendors here, but for example, Follows is a partner of ours. We're working closely with them. We've sort of doubled down our investment with them. There's an AI technology that we're using across the board to help us kind of to assist our SDRs in outreach. And we've made a big investment in them. So although it's kind of ironic and kind of seems counterintuitive to invest more in technology when your budget's getting cut elsewhere, we do feel that it's really important, and platforms like Demandbase and specific technologies that can help you get things done more efficiently and focus and prioritize your outreach are even more important at a time like this, because there's simply no way you'll get to that sales and marketing efficiency and that cost per opportunity without a technology assist. The other thing that I'd say is, having lost two big channels, events and field marketing, the chances for outreach and the chances to engage people have kind of dramatically reduced. So something like intent, where you can see intent either across the web or on your own website, is a great technology solution. So we've lost a fair amount of engagement with our audience through those two channels. And how do you make that up? Again, our argument is you make it up with technology, and a technology that can surface intent and show you which accounts and which people within buying committees at those accounts are interested in a solution like yours, that's a great investment in technology that you should continue to make, even as you're potentially cutting back in some other areas. And then the last thing I'll say about technology is your tech stack is a real asset to you. It's kind of like the keys to the kingdom, and you really need to make the right investments in your tech stack. So at Demandbase, we have something called an ABM Stack Evaluator. And what that is it basically assesses the health of your overall marketing and sales technology stack. And if you have specific gaps in that stack, so certain things that you don't have that are blocking you from efficiently running an account-based marketing program, it will highlight those gaps. So it's like a short 7-question survey. You run through, you plug in the technologies that you're using today, and it will recommend specific technologies in specific areas that you can use to augment your tech stack. So the ABM Stack Evaluator is a great way for you to just get an overview of your overall technology investment and see if indeed you do have some gaps that you could fill and problems that you can solve with key technologies.
Interesting. I was going to say, I don't know about that, so I want to play with that. I'm sure KPMG has plenty of holes to plug. So you talked about intent, right? Intent being one of the bigger signals. I know at KPMG, intent signals and everybody getting access to those buyer intent signals and understanding the reporting that we run through tools like Demandbase. That's probably, I can't even give, it's exponentially higher than it was even a month ago. My team can't even handle, the requests. So are there certain signals that we should be focusing on, or are there some that are more important than others?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I mean, this is the era of intent, right? Intent is your friend. And Kate, we talked about it last week. It's just a hunger for intent now. Yeah. Signals, I think it's largely because some of those old traditional channels that we relied on are gone. So you're not meeting folks at conferences, you're not doing VIP dinners, so people feel disconnected, and they're looking for ways to see what accounts and what people at those accounts are engaging with them. And that's what intent will do. It will allow you to target accounts that are in the buying cycle and looking for a solution like yours. The other thing I think you can do with intent, once you have that intent identified, using a platform like Demandbase, is you can ensure that you're investing the right number of dollars per account to reach into the buying committee there. So there's several ways you can do that. You can target most of your budget at high intent accounts, or you can target some of your budget at medium intent accounts, or you can take a counterintuitive approach and focus on those low intent accounts. And there's often way more of those to generate opportunities. The key here is you're not doing this blindly with sort of a shotgun approach like the old days. You're actually focusing on the accounts that are genuinely in market for your solution. They fit your ICP, your ideal customer profile. They're on your target account list, so you know that they're in a position to buy your solution. And not only that, they're showing that added layer of interest in your solution, whether it's through the keywords they're searching online or the content they're consuming on the web. These people are sort of self-identifying as interested in your solution. And that's where intent can really come into its own. The other thing I think you can do with intent, again, using a platform, an account-based marketing platform like Demandbase, is you can then personalize your website so that when somebody is searching for a specific topic on the web and they see an ad from your company and it drives you to their website, it drives them to your website, you can have a highly personalized experience on your website so that you close the loop for them. And that is a beautiful thing. So you've got somebody who's in market for your solution, who has the budget and is in your target account list. You're showing them creative that reflects exactly what they're looking for. And when you get them to your website is highly personalized and attuned to their industry or their job role or specifically what they're looking for. So that's really where intent can kind of come into its own and allow you to basically to reach into the buying committee and find those people that are in market and ready to buy your solution.
Hey, Brian?
Yep.
This is John East. I just want to make a comment. So I'm professor at Boston College and MIT, and formerly the founder and CEO of Serious Decisions. And since I've been around forever, I collected a lot of data in 01 and 02 when the market was down, 08 through 2010, really when the market went down. And there were some trends of what people really needed to think about in demand gen. And you're talking about it, but there's a reality that in marketing today, there is volume-based marketing and value-based marketing. And the value-based marketing clearly is account-based marketing. The reality is, I think a lot of the people here have to do both. But the three things that we found that was very common when times were tough is, one, an incredible emphasis on customer marketing, because that's what you want to protect. So how do I go to the people that I know the best to see if I can upsell and cross-sell if there's an opportunity to protect? And the second was to be very, very selective of where I'm going to spend the time and effort. So certain industries I just might take a pause on. There's certain areas that I need to really kind of think of. And that selection really becomes really, really important. The third area was velocity, of how can I help along the way, which both of those, certainly that has a lot of account-based techniques, but the shift was rather dramatic in both of those times. And the organizations that we measure that was most successful, those were the three things they did. They were more selective, focused on velocity, and focused a lot on their customers. Now, we have something that's unprecedented here in that we're losing channels. So it's very, very difficult. So we have to really be creative of how we find, new ways in which to connect with people. And that's what I think is one of the bigger challenges that everyone needs to figure out, to say, okay, even when I do that, and I become more selective and make those decisions, what are the things I'm going to do differently in my marketing to make it more successful? And I'll just share, I'm teaching graduate students, so a lot of them are working, and I always start the class with, okay, what are some of your newer marketing tactics? And there's one group that they're having virtual lunches where they send out a, much like this, but they're also sending out a series of menus that they deliver food via Uber Eats, and they have a lunch together, which I thought was very, very creative. And most are commenting that these events, like webinars, are suddenly picking up dramatically. So I think it'd be interesting to hear from the people on the line here, what are the things that you're doing that you're finding there's some improvement on? And are there some things that you're trying that might be creative and interesting that people could hear about? I'd be curious on that.
Great. I mean, great. I have some thoughts, but I want to give people a chance to chime in because it's three super points. Thank you very much. Would anyone like to share something that they're doing post-COVID that's being particularly effective out there? Okay, let me sort of share my insights while you're thinking. If anyone does have an input, please feel free to jump in and interrupt. Absolutely agree on the customer marketing side. I mean, I think that retrenchment is perfectly normal. One of the things that we've pivoted to doing, because we can't reach our customers as easily at events and at field marketing outreach, is we have started doing virtual customer roundtables. And that's where we're getting a group of customers together on a forum like this, and we're discussing their campaign activity. We're talking about the fact that, hey, this is unprecedented. 2 of your key channels are offline. What are you doing to pivot? How are you? Here's what we're doing fan base. Here's what's really working for us, and we're sharing those insights with customers, and customers are sharing those insights with us. So it totally works both ways. I mean, we're getting some terrific ideas around, like the whole Uber Eats e-gifting idea came from a brainstorming session with several of our customers. So it's stuff like that that kind of comes back to us that is incredibly valuable. The other thing I think that's important is there are certain industries right now that are just kind of off limits in terms of advertising to them. So we're talking to our customers about adjusting their account-based advertising strategy to certain industries that are just kind of, for example, the cruise industry or the hospitality, the hotels industry, they're under severe pressure right now, and kind of, that may not be the best place to put your budget. But there are other industries like virtual communications platforms like Zoom and On24, which are kind of experiencing unprecedented demand. So there are ways that you can be very reactive and pivot your spend. And we find those virtual customer sessions really good ways to discuss how to do that and what's really working and what's not working.
Yeah, just Brian on that, because I think a lot of everyone on the phone, you're probably getting questions from folks from your CFO and executives saying, what can you delete? What can you take out? How can we get some money? Because you have variable spend. and you have to deal with that. But then there's a question of, well, what if we don't do this marketing? What is the impact? We'll be losing a voice. And it's kind of an important aspect in which to say, how do I become more selective with the right voice? How do I lean into what's going on and allow our customers and key prospects to see that we can be very impactful this time? And I think that's part of the challenge. Is a lot of you are probably looking for that defense to say, hey, I need to send a message out to the marketplace. I need to market, and we have to do that properly. We can't simply delete. We also have to defend some of the things that we have going on. So I'd be curious, Brian, how are you seeing your customers defend some of the things that they're trying to support to management?
Yeah, I mean, so in my experience there, and it's a challenge our customers have had over the past couple of months, is how do we take the budget from some of the channels that we've paused and apply that intelligently to other channels. Now, in some cases, that budget is just gone, right? It's part of a kind of a budget reassignment, and marketing has taken a hit. You've kind of lost it. But in other cases, some of it is definitely available to be reapportioned. One of the things we recommend is you look at optimizing your budget, and how can you optimize your budget around the accounts that really matter. So if you're pursuing a double funnel strategy where you're doing volume-based marketing and you're doing account-based marketing, our position would be account-based marketing is far more efficient and your cost per opportunity is lower and your win rates are higher. Put your budget in there. Like it specifically, if you've got budget that's coming from an offline campaign activity like field marketing or events, take that budget and put it into digital channels. And we've actually seen tremendous increase in our webinar activity. Like so last month in March, we just ran the numbers recently, was our biggest month in the history of Demandbase in terms of registrations for online events, for virtual webinars. And it was like 3x what we had seen in a regular month, but also the very highest level of participation in virtual events that we'd ever seen. So what that's telling us right now is that people are obviously working from home. They're not going to events. They're not flying. They're not crossing the country. They're not going to customer dinners. So what are they doing? They're hungry for knowledge. They're attending events like this, Roundtable, Fireside Chats. They're attending virtual webinars, and all of your digital channels are on fire. And that's what a lot of our COVID-19.
We've also pivoted to, utilizing our digital channels not just as, kind of this opportunity to sell, but an opportunity to become more of a partner, right? To be an educational resource, things you should be considering. Granted, for, our business, we are in the consulting and tax and audit business, but it's all about kind of how do we keep our clients running, right? And we want to be a partner with them. And so I think this has been the time to do those softer sell kind of partners that have had really successful, what we historically called share forums. We're now calling them kind of lunch and learns, where you're actually, Skyping or Zooming or whatever with the partner in his kitchen. So you're getting to know people on a different level. And I think that is really what's going to help at least our business, because it is a relationship business. So I think you have to look at what kind of business you are running, right? Is it a volume game for you guys, or is it a longer term, higher deal relationship situation?
Yep, absolutely. In fact, one of the things we did almost immediately as a result of the COVID crisis, when we realized how serious it was, and we had all of our employees back, working from home and out of the office, is we stood down our SDR team and we talked to them and talked to leadership and said, look, now is not the time to be hard selling. Right now is the time to be consultative and to be offering people helpful advice. So we did a number of things, with our CMO, where we came up with like 7 helpful tips for budget management, or sessions like this where we're talking to other marketers going, well, look, here's what we're doing, here's what we're seeing work in the market, here's what's not working, and just be more consultative and be more kind of engaged with the prospects and customers that you have, because it's not a time, it is certainly not a time for a hard sell or for a pushy sell. Now is the time that everyone on your team, and again, it goes back to sales and marketing alignment and having that messaging kind of in lockstep. If all of your campaigns are taking a more helpful consultative approach, your outbound activities with SDRs should be the same, right?